Hey, this is Tim, licensed loan officer. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about mortgages for first-time home buyers as it relates to credit. I'm going to go over a lot of different things and stay tuned. Thank you and welcome to the channel. Just so you know, this channel is all about first-time home buyers, buying investment properties, budgeting, leveling up, and all things like that. If you like those type of topics, subscribe to this channel. Love to have you. Now, today I'm going to talk about basically credit and mortgages and debt to income. If you're a first-time home buyer or if you're looking to buy in the next 2 years, this would be a great video for you. So let's get into the agenda. Okay, perfect. So we're going to talk about some fun facts. I got some fun facts. Just so you know, this is a presentation I did for work, and I thought, why would I not share it here with my YouTube audience? Then we'll talk about some mortgage credit brackets. We'll go over some credit reports. We'll go over some negative mortgage terms and remarks on your credit. We'll talk about debt to income, and then we'll end with some mortgage credit data. Sounds good? Let's get into it. Now, here's just a fun fact. Did you know that historically in some cultures, paying off your mortgage was a significant achievement that it was celebrated in unique traditions? That's right. Now, I know you may think that you may not pay off your mortgage, especially with these home prices today, but it is possible. And these are some ways that they would celebrate it. Like in Scotland, they would paint their door red. It's a tradition in Scotland that to paint the front door red once your home has been paid off. The bright color probably says that your home is finally yours and debt-free. Now, I don't know if they still do this, but that's what I've heard and looked at in Scotland. Now, in America, we would do something called burning parties. Now, I know this is true. I think over 10 years ago, I went to a church and they literally burnt some papers of their mortgage note when it was paid off. But it was commonly for homeowners to host a burning party. They would literally burn their mortgage document as a symbolic act of freedom with celebrating with friends and family. But the goal of a mortgage is to pay it off. Ideally, you want it paid off before you retire. That way you can live debt-free, just pay your taxes and home mortgage insurance. So that's a fun fact. Now, I want to talk about mortgage brackets because that's a very topic. Everyone's interested in credit. Credit's a very important part when it comes to qualifying for a mortgage. And these are just some brackets here. They did kind of change these over the years. When I first started in the mortgage world, 740 was like the best credit. They moved that to 760. But these are some of the brackets here, if you can see that here. 760 to 779. 740 to 759, 720 to 739, and as you see 640 to 659. And over here indicates kind of like the loan to value. This is for a 15-year, but they got these for 30 years. So if you put less than 5% down, these are like basically the system would charge a little bit of cost. But just focus on the credit brackets here, especially if you're like borderline on one of these sides. So if you're borderline, one of these sides, 790, it makes sense to get to a 720. If you're borderline 699, get to a 700. So it's just good to know. Screenshot that. Just have an idea when you do check your credit when you're getting ready to buy a home. Let's go to the next slide here. So when you apply for a mortgage, they do something called a tri-merge credit report. And a tri-merge credit report is a credit report that combines all three major credit bureaus. The three major credit bureaus are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion into one single report. Now, as far as I understand, only a mortgage is where they pull a tri-merge. Most of the time, you apply for a car or something, a credit card, they might just use one of these. And each of these, you have a different credit score. But with a mortgage lender, they will use the middle score of these. So if they pulled your credit and have three of these, that's kind of how that will look. One of these might come from TransUnion, one of these Equifax, one of these might come from Experian. And then here's a little pop quiz. What credit score would a mortgage lender use to qualify you? Which one would that be? Tick, 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 tick. Yes, it will be 700. So they don't take the highest, they don't take the lowest, they take the middle. And that's why sometimes when you're getting ready to apply for a mortgage, it's good to get an idea at least what two of these credit scores are. Credit Karma gives you two. If you have a couple of credit cards, you can kind of figure it out. But they use the two. A lot of times people say, oh, you pulled my credit went down. It may have not went down. They just may have pulled the one with the lower one or the one with the middle one, and then you saw this. So it's just good to know. And then, like I said, there's different credit scores and different models. You might have noticed that your credit score depends on the scoring model, like a FICO or Vantage Score. A FICO is what mortgage lenders use, Vantage Score what Credit Karma uses, and then a lot of other ones, okay? Mortgage lenders overwhelmingly use FICO score, which is widely recognized and reliable source in the mortgage industry. So what mortgage use is a FICO, and then just depending on where you see your credit, it can be debatable. Credit is very confusing. But you make on-time payments. If you don't use too much credit, follow the rules, you will have pretty good credit. So these are just some negative remarks just to be aware of. Ideally, you don't want any of these, okay? You don't want a collection. A collection is basically, they sell it to a collection agency and they're trying to collect the debt. A charge-off is when a creditor determines that a debt will likely be paid and they writes it off. So you technically don't have to pay a charge off, but you might want to pay it or negotiate it to get it off your report. And then a judgment is a court order where they can garnish your wages, just do other things. You don't want a judgment. Usually a collection can turn into a charge off or a judgment, just so you know. And then with a collection, there's different guidelines. Like for a conventional mortgage, anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000, it might have to be paid off. So ideally, you want them under $2,000 or none. And then FHA loan, anything totaling $2,000 or more, you may need to pay it off. It does not count towards like medical. And then USVA and VA lenders have more flexibility. But again, if you don't want any of these, if possible, they're not going to help you. A charge-off. So conventional loans, charge-offs on credit report really depend on the property. So hopefully it's your primary. It also depends on if it's your primary home, one unit. It just really depends. With conventional, they use a system called AUS, Automatic Desktop Underwriting. We run it through and it kind of tells us what needs to be done. FHA, charge-offs, are more lenient. Again, they kind of run a system too, but they're looking at maybe $2,000 or more. And then it just really depends on your overall credit worthiness. So if you have really good income or a little bit higher credit, sometimes it doesn't hold against you. But if your credit kind of low with a charge off, sometimes it might affect you. Okay. And then judgments, basically, to be eligible for a conventional loan mortgage, borrowers with judgment generally need to pay them off in full, have a consistent payment history. So you need a payment plan or have to pay it off, usually with a judgment, because a judgment means they can garnish your wages. If they garnish your wages, that can affect your ability to make your mortgage payment. FHA loan, to qualify for FHA loan with a judgment, your credit report, you must have the judgment paid off or have a payment plan. So usually they want a payment plan or they want it paid off. So judgments are very serious. Try not to let things get to judgments. Usually if it's a collection, you try to settle it for half, something like that. Now, debt to income is important. You can have a good credit score, but if you have too much debt to income, it can affect you. Debt to income is the payments, your car payment, your minimum credit card payment. They have all your payments and your income. So debt to income is a critical factor. More companies consider to determine if you qualify for a home. It essentially compares your monthly debts to your gross monthly income. That's what it does, gross, okay? And then just to give you an idea, most lenders want a back end of 36, a front end of 28. Back end is all your payments. Front end is just your mortgage payment, okay? So it's good to know that. And they want to make sure you have extra money to pay other bills. An example of debt to income, let's just say you have a gross income of $6,000. And then your mortgage is $1,800 including your payment, like property tax, home insurance, everything out the door. And here's the math, 30%. And that's basically a front end. This would be a front end. Now, if you have some other payments, that's your back end. Let me go back over here to show you real quick. Oh, if I can go here real quick. You see where it says front end 28, back end 36, and it's just over. So you probably still qualify. It's not like cut and dry, but you would still qualify, even though you're over a little bit. And here we go again. So conventional, ideally, they want your front end 28% or less, and some would mix up to 36 in certain instances. Like I said, it's not like cut and dry. They look at your credit score, they look at the home and things like that. FHA, ideally, front end 31%, and then generally back end will be 43%. And then just some ways you could lower your debt to income if it's a little high. And these are easier said than done. So you could reduce your debt, increase your income, or do a debt consolidation. Debt consolidation could give you a lower payment, and that's what they go off of. They consolidate all of that to a lower payment, but be careful with those. Sometimes people consolidate debt, have all their cards paid off, and start using their cards again. So just be cautious of that. Here's just some mortgage data. As of August 13, 2022, there were more than 29 million Credit Karma members with mortgages. Among this set, the average VantageScore 3.0 credit score is 705 and the medium is 725. Users had an average mortgage balance of 231 and their mortgage payment was around average of 1638. What I want you to get from this is that with Credit Karma data, most people bought a home with around a 705. So that's like ideal, 705. Average, like for most homeowners, 725. So fairly, you want to shoot to have high credit, decent credit, good credit when buying a home, because that's kind of what the data is saying. That average homeowner, 25 million, an average payment around 1632. And that's not a bad mortgage payment, 1632. I know some areas that may not be possible, but that's not bad. And then the Lending Tree found that the average credit score for first-time home buyers in 2024 was 700, which was 32 points lower than repeat buyers. As you see, repeat buyers probably have a little bit higher credit because they've done it a couple of times and they know the rope. But first-time home buyer, it can be tough buying a home for your first time. And then the biggest thing I want to leave you with is payment history, okay? Payment history, okay? Roughly 30 to 35% of credit score is based on payment history. Even a large debt like a mortgage, making your payments on time proves to lenders you can afford your home. You always make your payments on time. You'll start to see your credit rating begin to climb. So always make on-time payments. Always have a little bit of savings. You never know when you lose your income, your job, get sick, to pay the minimum payment, because once your credit goes down, it's very hard to qualify for anything, okay? And then any questions, any concerns, if you have questions, please leave it in the comment below. I would love to answer it for you. I'm here to help you. Thank you so much for watching. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Like I said, if you have questions, concerns, drop me a comment below. You can request a video below. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you like this channel, you're finding value, please subscribe to this channel. I'd love to have you. Thanks so much. I'll see you again on the next video. Thanks.